Hello, you are welcome to chemistry class, and I am very pleased to have you here with me today. The topic you will be learning about today is called compounds. Compounds, and under the topic compounds, you will learn about the meaning of compounds, types of compounds, some common examples of compounds, and characteristics of compounds. What is a compound? A compound is a pure substance that can be broken down into elements. It is made up of two or more atoms from different elements. A compound is a pure substance that can be broken down into elements. Now recall that element is a pure substance that cannot be broken down into smaller substances, and that there are 118 elements known to man on the periodic table. To have a compound, there needs to be at least two or more different elements coming together. Compounds are formed when elements joined together are held by strong forces called chemical bonds. And so, a chemical bond is a force that joins atoms together. And like I said, to have a compound, there needs to be at least two or more different elements coming together. So compounds can be broken down into separate elements. Compounds can be broken down into separate elements. Now we have two types of compounds. We have the ionic compound and the covalent compounds. An ionic compound is a compound made of ions. An ionic compound is a compound made of ions. An ion is a particle like an atom that has lost or gained an electron. Remember that an electron can be found on the outside of a nucleus of an atom. And so an ion is like a particle. It's a particle like an atom that has lost or gained an electron. An ionic compound consists of positively charged ions and negatively charged ions. An ionic compound consists of positively charged ions and negatively charged ions. Now, the positive charged ion is called a cation, while the negative charged ion is called anion. The covalent compound is a compound whose atoms are bonded by a covalent bond. A covalent compound is a compound whose atoms are bonded together by a covalent bond. And a covalent bond is a chemical bond between two non-metal atoms. A covalent bond is a chemical bond between two non-metal atoms. Now we have some common examples of compounds. The first example that we'll be learning today is water. Water is an example of a compound because it is made up of two elements, hydrogen and oxygen. Salt is another example of a compound. It is made up of sodium and chlorine. So when you mix sodium and chlorine together, you get salt, which is sodium chloride. We have carbon dioxide, CO2, carbon and oxygen. We have toothpaste, and that is sodium fluoride. So when you mix sodium and fluorine together, you get an element in toothpaste. We also have mouthwash, which is an example of a compound, and that is H2O2, hydrogen peroxide. We also have carbon monoxide, CO, as an example of a compound. And lastly, we have methane, which is CH4, as an example of a compound. Now we have different characteristics of compounds. And the first that we'll be learning today is that it is made up of two or more different elements. A compound is made up of two or more different elements. Another characteristics of a compound is that it can be broken down into elements. It can be broken down into elements. Remember, elements cannot be broken down into any other smaller particle, but a compound can be broken down into elements. And then lastly, compounds have properties different from elements that they are made of. A compound have properties different from elements that they are made of. For example, hydrogen and oxygen are gases, but when they come together, they make water, which is a liquid. So all of these are some characteristics of compounds. And like I said, a compound is a pure substance that can be broken down into elements, and it is made up of two or more atoms from different elements. Wow! I hope you understood every bit of this lesson. I'll see you in the next class. Bye for now.